Who's back and sing, so we have to start. Yes, my name is Patrick Yakagala, and I want to say first.
Good afternoon, everyone. The previous was with you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not changing if I want to demonstrate.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mario Anderson. I work with the Ministry of Water and Environment to support the process.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm called Adrien Chirabo. I'm a consultant, but also work with the Plan Legal Standard, the regional project officer for the PV Granville Private Study.
Okay. For now.
Good afternoon. I'm very
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mugunya Xavier. Freelance consultant. That's the system.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chaplain. I work at the Managing Department Ministry of Water and Environment.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is
Avoidance of doubt. My name is Enoch Sepo. I work at Mokele University.
It's long since I had the words evaporated the doubts. Anyway, my name is Bob Kazu, Study Commissioner for Forestry, in charge of assessment and monitoring. I'm also by the grace of God, the National Red Flag for Opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. We know each other, meaning that we are a composition of academia, civil society, government. We expected a colleague from private sector, but I hope she will be joining us shortly. Like I said, on behalf of Emily, we are so grateful. First to WWF, Uganda, for the cooperation matters of forests, specifically incentivizing sustainable forest management. We have a cooperation with the WWF on ensuring that stakeholders have a role to play as far as REDD+ is concerned, and ensuring that they are at the forefront of ensuring REDD+ meets not only their livelihood needs, but also the sustainability desires. So we are implementing a project with the WWF to the tune of 150 million Uganda shillings for 1 year. And this project particularly looking at how stakeholders continue to interact on various aspects of REDD+, but notably around the governance related elements. One of the key activities we have undertaken, we have commissioned a study, which study is envisaged to help us ascertain what is a good REDD+ project. Because we have had people talking about REDD+ project, but what qualifies such a project? What should be the ingredients of such a project? Relatively, we have also undertaken some consultative engagements with a number of you on the draft climate change mechanisms. Okay, my colleague Irene is behind. We met with some of you for I think 4 to 3 days, or the other way around. providing input in the draft climate change regulation. Many people prefer to call them carbon market regulations. And the contribution was to ensure these regulations have additional input from stakeholders, basically across the various parts of the regulation, which touch a number of parameters, and some of you have had. I was privileged when I was discussing one of carbon standard practitioners, not the plan people, but another, telling them that I think Uganda's regulations climate change mechanisms have been one of these that have been subjected to wide stakeholder consultation, and also robust in a sense that there are regulations which are touching various aspects, but all under one part, touching issues of benefits, arrangements, touching issues of measuring emissions, they touch issues of stakeholder engagement, they touch issues of who verifies these emissions and so forth and so on. So that's something I can say, but really the regulations of carbon markets in Uganda are one of the robust we have seen with a clear fee regime. As this 1 year project is coming to an end, I want to reiterate that this is not only the engagement we're having, but also we will continue to engage with the National Technical Committee of the Red Plus Secretariat. We will also support 2 dialogues, and Assistant Commissioner, the ball is in your hand. This time, innovatively, what we managed to convince the WWF, we don't want these dialogues where we come from nowhere with so many issues, then we want to dialogue haphazardly. We have talked to our partner to ensure that we have a small support to undertake a desk study on what should be dialogue about. Is it a public issue? Is it a practice issue? Is it something like policy issue which you think you need public dialogue? I want to reveal that we have a budget for 2 of those desk studies, and I will encourage academia and government, especially, to use this support such that we're able to hold these 2 dialogues. I know in forestry we have so many issues, but we cannot complete them, but we can continue the discussion. I remember in the recent National Technical Committee, we opened the issue of what is a forest and redefining the forest. I don't know if Mr. Assistant Commissioner, I think that would be the first dialogue. We can commission a small desk study, and then from there, we can convene a dialogue, convene a public dialogue where you can invite 200 people, and then brainstorm about what should be defined as a forest in Uganda, without preempting the ongoing work of the Forestry Policy Review, the National Tree Planting Act. Still, as we are planning this, some colleagues from our code reminded me, where is the tree fund? I said, okay, I will look for colleagues who work there on the tree fund. What happened to the tree fund, which some of our colleagues were instrumental in in trying to put up. I remember the likes of the director of the forest company, and others who were instrumental in writing about this national tree fund. Maybe it's high time we revive the talk. I'm seeing funds mushrooming. Recently, the NPA was given a fund to help all MPAs develop project concepts. So if NPA is given a basket which they are going to struggle, utilize, how about a basket which had the objective? So these are some of the things we thought. If stakeholders in forestry want to dialogue, this time we need informal dialogues, small write-up, which give a sense of direction, and then we open up. So with those few remarks, sorry for preempting a very big discussion, but you see, when you're talking about issues of forestry in this country, you see it is an ending journey. Forget about also the ban on charcoal, which still colleagues are scratching heads. What should we do? We are still using charcoal everywhere, but politely we are saying how do we implement the ban, but also continue to use the charcoal in the dark. So these are some of the things we think that we need to dialogue, we need to do better and find solutions before it's too late. So with that, I want to say welcome to this review meeting, and our consultant, Adrian, is here. Adrian will be taking us through this study report in a few moments from now. But before, we thought that it would be necessary to give you a refresher on how far things are moving as far as climate and forestry before the deep dive in the incentive around forestry. So I don't know, Irene, if you're ready. If Irene is ready, please, at this juncture, join me in welcoming Irene from Climate Change Department. So I will have the floor. Please start.
Bob, I know why you're smiling. Okay, so good afternoon once more, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, but I know that there was lunch, so that's also a problem. Yeah, that's also a problem. Okay, so all protocol observed. My presentation is short, and I already introduced myself that I work in the Ministry of Water and Environment, Climate Change Department, and so far I'm still a senior climate change officer. Maybe soon things will change. So let's go to the next slide. So my presentation will focus more on Uganda's carbon projects and briefly on the state of play. It's very interesting, the arrangement of the unit. I sit here, I stand there, my teacher is behind. It's not fair. Okay, so I'll briefly speak to the introduction and then have a brief few slides on forestry projects and standards. And then we'll speak to the clean home and mechanism transition. Briefly that. So in terms of introduction, we're all aware that Uganda already has a National Climate Change Act of 2021. And this Climate Change Act is very interesting when it comes to issues of carbon projects. The brains behind that act, Robert, you're one of them. So they called it issues of carbon projects or issues of carbon. They called it climate change mechanisms. So when you hear climate change mechanisms, regulations, then you know that those are carbon markets regulations. So the act speaks to a number of climate change mechanisms and lists a number of them, including compliance. And we have the voluntary, Article 6.4, Article 6.2 of the Paris Agreement. And then it also says that any other mechanism that the minister may prescribe. And so it is based on that act, there's a specific section, which is section 9, that speaks to issues of carbon markets. And it's based on that we have come up with what is called the climate change mechanisms regulations, which we haven't yet finalized. But technically it's done, just the pipeline of approval. So very soon, these regulations shall be out. So I think that is like the first one to everywhere we go. The first question is, where are the regulations? I can't wait to see them out. Yeah, so still on the introduction, the country shall use carbon markets as one of the essential channels for mobilizing private sector financing to implement its NDCs. And this is what our NDC, updated NDC speaks to. This is NDC 2022. And so apparently the Ministry of Water and Environment, that's the status, the Office of Solicitor General are finalizing the regulations to guide the country's participation in carbon markets. And next slide. So I think there's a title there, just missing, right? It's a title which is. Yeah. So we did an assessment to ascertain Uganda's carbon market portfolio. We did that, I think 2 years ago. And just briefly, the results indicated that Uganda is one of the front runners in Africa, with a total of over 16 million certified emission reductions. And this is from about 189 registered clean development mechanism activities. And out of that, we had about 19 standalone projects. And then we had the programmatic ones being 8 of them. So most of the project activities were spread across sectors. But you realize that most of them are into bookstocks and issues of water purification, and also landfill composting projects. So the reforestation and afforestation project activities were really very few, as you can see. There were just about 6 of them. And I think in the room we have Xavier, who was very instrumental in a couple of them that were managed by NFA. So there were really very few forest-related activities under the Kyoto arrangement. Next slide. So in terms of the forestry projects and standards, like I said, we had only very few of the forestry-related activities during the Kyoto regime. Also, the voluntary that time really did not do a lot in forestry-related activities. So these are some of the project activities relating to forestry. And we have this about 5 of them. And then the 6th one is the one that is about 6. Those are 6 of them. That's the underlying basin forestation, and all that. And I think this was managed more by NFA, Xavier, if I'm right.
The 5.
Yes, and 5 of them were managed by NFA. Yeah, so then we have the Central Forest Reserve Reforestation activities, and all these were under CGM as a certification standard. But only we have trees for global benefits, which is under non-legal. And you said you're from there? Yes. So I know that from Madam Pauline Nantongo. Yeah, she's done a good job. So that is one of the forestry related activities that we see to have really done a good job so far. But that is under the voluntary bucket and is under the plan in terms of certification standard. Next slide, please. Sorry, should have gone there. Okay. So we have many more other standards. So they call themselves these things. Some of them call themselves voluntary, no, they call them independent standards. They call themselves now independent standards. For example, the gold standard, the Vera, and then we have also the Red Plus, environmental excellence standard, that's the Act Trees. That is Bob's favorite. Yeah, so we have a couple of standards really that different projects developers can choose to implement or register their projects in. And those are some of them. So out of the many CDM projects that we as a country have, in I think that was Glasgow 2020, the 26th Conference of the Parties in Glasgow, the CMA3 that came up or adopted the rules, modalities, and procedures for the mechanism, which is under the Paris Agreement, which is Article 6.4. Now they call it the Paris Agreement Crediting Mechanism. It has changed names from Sustainable Development Mechanism. I don't know, the first one was called the mechanism, just. So now we hope that this one, we have, maybe this is the new forever baptized name. Yeah, this is what the supervisory body of this specific article eventually agreed to call. So when you hear Paris Agreement Crediting Mechanism, then you know that is Article 6.4 of the Paris Agreement, which is a replacement of the CDM. Yeah, some call it PACA. Yeah, PACA.
Yeah.
Yes, so that is a replacement of a CDM. And so during that CMA4, decision also was reached on the guidance on the transition of the CDM projects to this specific mechanism. So based on that guidance, the process for CDM activity transition in Uganda needs to comply with that guidance that we agreed upon during the Glasgow COP. So we, could you maybe go to the next slide?
Next slide.
Yes. So the process was very interesting. Could you go to the next one before this? Then we'll come back to this. This is the process of the transition of these CDM projects. You can see that the Africans complain that we have a lot of work. So we don't need a lot of work again under the previous mechanism, which is the CDM. So we want the Secretariat to do a lot more work, and we can only do the approvals, the assessments and approvals. It's why you see that the project developers or the project proponents, that is for the CDM projects, we are communicating directly to the Secretariat, UNFCCC Secretariat, on expressing their interests to have their project transition to Article 6.4. And you see the Secretariat getting back to the DNAs, which is the designated national authorities, in this case, the Ministry of Water and Environment, that is the CCD Uganda. So the Secretariat sent to us a list of projects that they assessed, and they successfully seem to be fit for transition. And they asked the DNA to approve those projects. But we should be able to approve those projects based on the specific criteria, which we have developed as a ministry. We have developed it with some of our partners. And the major issue is that we need to make sure that these projects are aligned to our NDCs. So if they qualify or if they are aligned to our NDC actions, measures, policies, then we can be able to pass them. Of course, there are many other parameters, but that is the major one. Then we can be able to pass them. After evaluation, we pass them, we approve them and send them back to the secretariat. The secretariat works together with the supervisory body, which is for that specific Article 6.4. So there will be a back and forth interactions between the project developer, the secretariat, the supervisory body, but also they will have to come back again to the DNA to confirm that these are eventually the projects that we are going to transition to Article 6.4. So there are so many activities that will be happening really around here before the final approvals. But the final approval or all approvals of this project should be done by end of 2024. That is the most important thing. But we have already done our assessments, and very soon we will be submitting to the secretariat our approvals of those projects. So let's go back to the other slide. I think I already said this, that upon receiving notification from the UNFCCC Secretariat, Article 6 DNA, the Ministry of Water and Environment through the Climate Change Department evaluates, approves the transition requests by 31st December 2025. But this for us will do before 2025. Okay, so let's go to the other slide. So these are the projects that the Secretariat assessed, evaluated, and sent to us for approvals. You will see that all these projects, you will not see any forestry related projects. Reason? In Sharm el-Sheikh, that was COP21, 27, yes. We agreed that because of the challenges relating to forestry activities, for example, I think that is to do with the lifespan of the projects. Is that specific? Then the specific what is what? Yes, jumped. So because permanence. Yes, issues relating to permanence of project forestry related activities was a major challenge. So the focus was we need to first transition these projects which are not forestry related. So why you see all these projects are not forestry. But at the same time, Brazil, that is having a lot of forest activities or projects under the CDM, and also maybe those in different standards, they requested that we need also the forestry project to be transitioned soon after this one. And this was included in the text, as you're aware that Article 6.1 and Article 6.2 decisions haven't yet been reached. And we hope that maybe this coming up and finalize it. So maybe we will be able to get a decision whether to transition forestry projects by next year, perhaps or not. That is something that when we go to vote for those who want to negotiate, should negotiate well so that we are able to have our forestry projects also transition. So these are the projects, and you realize that there are two of them that went through the global stakeholder consultations and it passed, and then this was usually rejected. They were rejected only based on US issues. For example, the person who communicated is not in the project. Because you know, when you are submitting your project, you submit also the details of the contact person. So this time, most of them had left this project. So all these companies where this project are. So that was just a challenge. It was just a minor thing. They said they will work on it, but we are looking forward to the Secretariat and the Supervisory Board's decision on that. So these are the 13 projects. These are 15, but 13 of them are the ones we have assessed, and we have also approved them. Next slide. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene. And the colleagues, now you can see why we needed the climate change department to give us the status. No, she's going to be protected. It should be protected. We don't start one to fire. Irene,
That's fine. Just questions for.
but what we wanted is to set a scene for you. A small rejoinder is, even though we have a number of voluntary carbon, let's use the word carbon. Okay, voluntary projects. Many are dying to crossover transition. Many are dying to what? Transition. And Irene has given you a snapshot of how the transition is moving. So if you are there and you have been voluntary, and you know that you want to transition, it is not going to be a smooth transition. You need to go through those checks and those balances. So I would first want to say, those who have questions for Irene, please note them down because it is already 3. I've seen that when you open one round of discussions, then you are killing the test of the next presenter. So I don't want to be the one between the next presentation, but that shows you what we have in the boiling room or the kitchen. So I would now request, please take those questions, comments. I'll be passing around. We have these notebooks. I learned this tactic in negotiation. African group, especially LDCs, are known to always want to take the floor. But when you ask them, can you submit a preposition? They'll tell you how the pen is not writing very well, how the internet is slow, and so forth and so on. So let's not demonstrate we are Africans in negotiations. So just use this piece of paper, put a comment or question. If you don't want to put it in writing, you have the chance. After this presentation, we are going to have a joint plenary for both the first presentation and the second presentation. As now I take this singular honor to invite none other than Miss Adrienne Kirabo. Adrienne Kirabo, like I has told you, she is not only doing consultancy, but also she's supporting one of our voluntary standards in Uganda, and that is Plan Vivo standard. So Adrienne would tell you what she's doing for Plan Vivo, as now she takes us through what she has been doing in the past couple of days. So Adrienne, you have the floor. And you can see we only have female presenters. No male presenters this time. Female.
Nelson said they accept them. He has given me a tip on that.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Robert. Good afternoon to the onliners already. Greeted those of us in the room. I'm Adrienne Kirabo. Like Robert has said, apart from being a consultant, I also support the Plan Vivo standard, mainly the projects in East Africa, giving them support, technical support, but also supporting those that would like to join or to apply and be registered as projects under the voluntary standard that is managed by the Plan Vivo. So today's presentation, I'm glad that Robert has already given us a brief about the project, so I'll not repeat it. And I want to thank Irene also. She has showed us as the country where we are in terms of REDD+. And so my background to the work that I did with Emily has already been presented. But briefly, I would say that our focus was on governance, forest governance, and we wanted to see if there are any enablers for REDD+ in the Kagombe or Goma landscape That is the project landscape for WWF Uganda Country Office. And they are also starting up a RED Plus activity there. And so they wanted to find out if there are any enablers for RED Plus, but also challenges and issues that exist in the landscape. So I'll request that I don't present about RED and where we are as a country, but emphasize that we looked at rules and structures, we looked at capital processes and practices and how they interact together for the management of forests in this landscape. Next, please. So the purpose of the study was to assess the governance features, if there are any potential that are relevant to the success of RED in that landscape. And the main objectives were three. One was to understand if there are any issues or challenges with RED Plus projects in the landscape, and also document evidence of governance features that determine the success of RED Plus projects. And then we had to prepare a study report and a briefing note from our findings. So our study area looked at Kyenjojo, included Kyenjojo, Kagadi, Chivale, and Chikube districts. And we adopted a definition of a successful RED Plus project to be that has already achieved either an increase or decrease, depending on how the activity is designed, the greenhouse gas emissions. And there were only forestry projects or forestry related activities. And in the landscape, in those districts, like Irene has presented, we only have 6. Of the 6, how many were in Kagadi and these other districts? There were hardly any, but we managed to get some examples, like the Trees for Global Benefit program, managed by EcoTrust, and other that are either starting or had started or are similar in concept to RED Plus. The definition of governance we adopted was looking at the other 3 factors, especially at the district local government level and the community level. So we did not reach the national level in our study or in our assessment. The main data collection approaches used were literature review of RED Plus work, forest governance work in Uganda and outside Uganda. Then we also conducted stakeholder consultations. We had a checklist with predetermined issues or challenges of RED Plus that have been experienced in other countries. And then we also had the main governance indicators and forest-related issues to see if they exist in the area. We had focus group discussions. Mainly, we interviewed collaborative forest management, members of collaborative forest management groups. We also interviewed communities that are just adjacent to forests, where RED-like initiatives have started or are in the process of being started. And then we also interviewed private forest owners, those who own natural forests in Kibale and Kagadi. And then we also interviewed civil society officers, natural resource departments, and other stakeholders in the district and the communities. The data we collected was analyzed using content analysis for literature review, for data collected using literature review. And then information that collected from the stakeholder consultations was analyzed into various themes, and then we used all this to generate the report that I'm presenting today. So these are some of the stakeholders we interviewed: the natural resource officers, forestry officers of the other districts that I mentioned, staff of NFA, NGOs, and collaborative forest management groups, private natural forest owners, and forest adjacent. So I'm presenting my findings into these three categories. One will be on the challenges and issues associated with REDD+ projects, the perceptions from the people we interviewed, but also evidence of governance features that determine the success of REDD+ projects. And these are hoped to feed into what the introduction that Robert gave us in terms of what WWF intends to do in the landscape. So we had a list of very many issues that are, or challenges that are associated with REDD that we posed to purposely selected interviewees. And given the level of experience or participation in REDD+ or forest-related activities, we had to pause to get a checklist that already had some of these issues, and we were asking them to rank at least 5 that they think are key or that are common in the landscape. And of the many, the main that came out was uncertainty, the issue of technical capacity, poor forest governance, coordination, the opportunity cost of REDD, and then the high expectations associated with REDD that I'll explain each in detail in the next slide. So when it came to unpredictability or uncertainty, unpredictable REDD+ markets was one of the main issues that was highlighted. And this was because the main reasons given, the stakeholders feel that it's a big issue because of the bureaucratic and lengthy negotiation. Irene has already told us that we are not even sure whether or not forest will be added or not. So some of those things are causing a lot of fears and uncertainty on the success of REDD+ in the landscape. Then the stakeholders feel that REDD+, we are depending on an international market, which we cannot regulate. You know, they gave examples like it's not beans and cassava that I'll take to a local market and trade and get money. We are dealing with a market that we do not have full control over as a country. So that brings a lot of fear and uncertainty on whether it will be a success or not. Then there was also the issue of how the market is going to be managed, given that we do not have, as a country, it's not in our own mandate to determine that this is the price and this is how you trade. So all these 3 fears are causing a lot of anxiety among those that would be participants of REDD+ in the landscape. Then when it came to technical capacity, the main issues raised were around inability to design and develop a REDD+ project, mainly because it's done by either NGOs, for example, in the landscape, it's NGOs that had REDD+ initiatives or similar initiatives. So some of the district staff are not sure that they can ably do that. Then there is also lack of capacity in collecting, analyzing data related to REDD+. Some of them said the existing projects that we have related to forestry are managed by, for example, NGOs, and there's little engagement of districts in the day-to-day management of these projects. And then issues to do with monitoring REDD+ projects, especially when it comes to use, for example, GIS and any other tools that are not their everyday tools, was raised as one of the main issues or main challenges that they foresee if REDD is to start on the landscape. And then, of course, they say the lack of equipment and human resource that can take on the REDD+ projects, given that they're usually of large scale in nature compared to the day-to-day work that they do. Then relating to forest governance, poor forest governance was also raised as an issue. And the main reason given for poor forest governance was, one, weak law enforcement. But despite the fact that we have many laws that would safeguard or protect forests, we are still losing forests at a very high rate. And that could be because of weak law enforcement, which they are not yet sure on how it will be addressed if REDD+ is to start in their landscape. Then there was also issues to do with corruption and also powerful political and economic interests that outweigh the need to conserve. And one of the good examples they gave was the case of where we lost part of Bungoma forest to sugarcane growing because the political and economic interests were higher than the conservation interests. So the stakeholders are afraid and worried that if these are not checked, then they may affect success of REDD+. Weak coordination and collaboration was also raised as another challenge in the landscape. And this was mainly, the main reasons given included weak coordination across the various government levels and agencies. And that was, they pointed to the fact that REDD+ or climate change issues have concentrated mainly at the higher level with less involvement of the district level stakeholders at the start. So maybe unless things change, if things continue the way they are, then it will affect the success of REDD+. And then there was also lack of collaboration among actors in the central and local government, a lack of joint planning between different agencies and that are in one or the other, whose interaction in one or the other affects forestry. Then there's also an equal resource allocation at the moment. Most of them cited a very bigger budget allocation to natural resource department compared to other departments. And they feel that if this is not changed or if nothing happens, then it will not, if the status quo remains, then REDD will not succeed in the landscape. Then there was also ego among staff agencies and local government. They feel that they are called local, like the word local government is, and they are, so they think that if that attitude among staff doesn't change and it's brought down in the implementation of REDD, then it will really affect the success. And then the opportunity cost of REDD+. We all know that in this landscape, there is sugarcane growing that has spread from Masindi now up to Chenjojo. I think they had like 3 factories in Hoima. They have Wendero, they have the Hoima Sugar, Yara the other side, Chenjojo also has. So the short-term and higher benefits from sugarcane growing, from maize growing, and now they say even there's a big market for plywood from eucalyptus. All these cannot be compared to the carbon payments that some of them are already receiving, but also those that they anticipate to get from REDD+. So the opportunity cost of foregoing what they are doing at the moment to participate in REDD remains high, and therefore it may affect the success of REDD in the landscape. So those were the 5 most pressing issues, but there were other issues that were cited, though they were not to the magnitude of the 5. For example, ensuring that REDD+ requirements are implemented. The point that Irene raised on permanence was raised, but also additionality questions that they already have. They feel that they already REDD-like initiatives that are ongoing in the landscape. I heard that they have TIST, for example, which I didn't see in the presentation here, but I heard that it is there on ground. They have the TGB program, they have those that are managed by NFA and other players. I think I had also in one of the workshops, in one of the interviews, Caritas, and forgetting the name of the project, are also starting another REDD-like initiative. So ensuring that how will you defend additionality, but also what's the global concern on permanence when it comes to forest amidst the other drivers of forest issue. Then when it came to benefit sharing, the main issue there was mainly in communities that are under collaborative forest management. And one of the examples cited was, if you take an example of Kaseta CFM group in Bungoma, it had an MOU with NFA. And when the issue of part of Bungoma giveaway came, they were not helped in any way. So how sure are they that if another investor like that comes, they will not lose their REDD+ benefits. They had not gone into REDD+, but they use that as an example that currently they're negotiating MOUs and including for tree planting for REDD or tree planting for carbon as one of the benefits in the CFM MOUs. But one, the failure or the lack of being safeguarded came out as a strong issue, therefore concern and fear for the success of REDD+. But also they are saying, much as they are signing these MOUs, it's not yet clear whether the trees are theirs. So some of MOUs are saying the carbon rights are theirs, but the question on tree ownership is not yet clear. So that came out also as one of the main issues or fears that they have. And then, of course, the tenure insecurity that comes, especially with those that are under collaborative arrangements. And those whose tenure is not either documented or recorded, they still have issues of, are we sure that we are the rightful owners of these trees? What if anyone comes and claims ownership because of what is happening in the country as regards land tenure insecurity issue? And then there was also limited transparency and accountability. Mainly, they refer to the fact that the payments, yes, are made, and the farmers are paid, or under any REDD scheme they will be paid. But the fact that they are not the ones who are negotiating for the payment, it raises a lot of transparency issues that they think may also go on REDD unless REDD looks at it differently or addresses it early enough. And then we have high expectations. This was common around Chivali, Kagadi, where private natural forest owners have kept their forests for as long as 2000, as old as when REDD+ started in Uganda, 2008, with DFO telling them we are coming. Yeah? Telling them they are coming, REDD is about to come. So there is a lot of high expectation. And they are comparing REDD, they're saying, well, we've kept our forests, not turned them into sugarcane, we've not turned them into maize, we've not turned them into eucalyptus, which are better paying. We hope that REDD will meet the current benefits that we are getting from these other enterprises. So those high expectations are going to be met by REDD+ at whatever time and day any project comes up, especially for those who still have their private natural forests. The other issue that came out strongly was the lack of sufficient funding opportunities. We are all looking at one market, the international market. If maybe there were other markets, or if there were other funding opportunities that may not necessarily come as PACE rewards, but opportunities to support farmers who have trees or who are to tree planting, to continue with the tree planting business as they benefit in one or the other. So the current state is that there are few funders that are going into forestry related work. And as a result of that, it's causing a lot of negative conservation where many people are either cutting or keeping 1 or 2 trees and you think it's a forest because of the crown. But when you're down on the land, you find that it is 1 tree. Then there was a lot of the issue of negative publicity in the local communities. Many think that REDD+ is the hoax. Why have you taken this long to come? Why isn't it coming? Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not real. Maybe it's one way of colonizing that again. Then the other negative publicity that came out was the fear that this could be one way of causing communities to lose their land, where government will come and one day gazette all forested areas and claim and take them as government protected areas, especially given that the communities really accuse government of not having protected its own estate in the case of Bungoma. And as such, many are using that to campaign any little efforts on ground to conserve forests. And during the study citation, they raised the issue of Kagombe, the issue, they're saying that maybe even Odongo may be the next. So there's a lot of fear and concerns that arose from what happened in Bukono. So those were the main issues or challenges on REDD+ landscape. Now, the governance principles that we looked at were 7: transparency, participation, equity. Emma, you can take it back since we switched looking at the edge. Coordination and others. And we had a set of indicators that we were using to measure or to assess depending on what enables REDD+. And we selected these indicators, and then we asked questions relating to what can enable REDD+ to be a success in the landscape, and then asked the respondents to help us see what they think would work best or would be the most ideal. So the next slide shows a summary of the key REDD issues and the forest governance principles and their indicators. For example, they said that security of forest and land tenure and accompanying benefits is the key issue for REDD+ to succeed. And then we were looking at what do they consider as an important governance aspect or principle if this is to happen in the landscape. And transparency came out as the main governance principle that would lead to success of REDD if we adopted these REDD+ enablers. The main REDD+ enablers were security of forest and land tenure, and we found that the existence of our laws, our legal framework on land tenure gives us a big milestone as a country, because we have customary tenure being protected by the laws, and forest and trees are part of that. So we found they say that if that can be upheld, then surely we'll have a successful REDD+, except of course apart from the other fears that were mentioned earlier. Then the implementation of REDD+ alongside key livelihood assets is also worth adopting if REDD+ is to be successful. They said if projects that come with REDD+ and other benefits, not just the carbon payment, are more successful than those that are just purely on carbon payments. And then the availability of carbon markets, of course, I already talked about that. And then the active involvement of environmental civil society organization also came up strongly as a key enabler of REDD+. This is because I think most of the successful projects in the landscape have been started and are managed by civil society organizations. But they also say that civil society organizations are able to lobby, to advocate, to be their voice. And that's why they think that it should be adopted if REDD+ is to succeed in the landscape. And then, of course, having a supportive policy and legal regime, which we have or we are working towards having as a country since the start of REDD+ discussions, is also key, and was mentioned as an important enabler of REDD+. So I've already presented this in the previous slide, the enablers of REDD+ success, that is security of forest and land tenure. If we are to continue with the current security on, for example, customary land, they are found it to be better, somehow more transparent and easy to use. That is if the other small or minor issues are addressed. Then REDD+ being implemented alongside assets like maybe access to safe water or better energy saving technologies or improved agriculture, among others. I think we can go to this. Yeah, so in conclusion, I would say that there are quite a number of issues or challenges that were highlighted as are presented. And the enablers for REDD+ to succeed also exist. with quite a number of governance principles therein. And therefore, it would be good for us to, one, provide the REDD+ benefits and incentives and other benefits that come with REDD that can be added to REDD+, so that it is adopted and made somehow close, or it may not be better than the other competitors in the landscape, but somehow more enticing. And then there's need to strengthen capacity, but also create awareness among stakeholders on the national REDD+ process, because some of the issues that are raised were pointing to either a lack of information or lack of knowledge on what is happening at the national level. There's a gap between the national and the local government level, and it could be explained. But the fact that it's not explained, the fact that they're not engaged, shows that there's a gap that needs to be addressed. Then project design aspects that should, example projects working closer with local governments. We saw that most local governments say the existing projects in the landscape have very limited engagement with local government, and could be maybe it's part of the project design. But if there are ways of improving that to have more and a better participation of local government, it would be good, and it's something that we should advocate for. And then, of course, building capacity in monitoring, data collection for REDD+, which can come at a time when we are ready to implement REDD+. And then being able to estimate carbon stocks from forests, etc., all which point to the fact that we are at a stage at which we are as a country, we've not been able to engage these stakeholders to this level. And then lastly is to strengthen the coordination between up and down, meaning the national level and the district local government level, and of course the communities therein, so that the issues with negative publicity, misconceptions, and misinformation are addressed. So generally, the communities are a bit tired, but not very tired, which for me, I think gives us hope, because even participating in such study shows that they're still interested and they're waiting for the National REDD+ program to start. They're still keeping their forests, especially those that have private forests, and those that have the entrance collaborative forest management that we engaged with were not aware that is what they call REDD and how they can benefit. So it also gives them an opportunity to participate and also be able to make more meaningful conservation on their private land, but also the public lands that they are co-managing with benefit. So despite the issues and challenges, I think there are things that we can address. They are not challenges that really are hard to address. So I want to thank you very much.
Can we clap as we are done? Thank you very much, Adrien. Adrien has given you an attempt. We have made one park REDD+ performance, but most importantly, to try to respond to the aspects of what are the issues associated with REDD+. What is the evidence? REDD+ implementation, and what needs to be done. Now, before I open up the floor, I have been reminded already to tickle participants if you want them to pay attention. Don't always take them for a ride. Bump a ride as you are in the Zoom meeting. You are bumped from the time you join in until you drop off. How many of you have prepared the wheels? By show of hands. By show of hands. How many of you have prepared the wheels? So only one. Only one has prepared the wheel. A draft is a wheel.
No, it's a wheel, as not signed.
A draft is a wheel. I was made to understand, and Prof, it is you who have been trying to teach us to be so clear, and we must analyze something. So I've been told a will is a will, and the validity of a will is another subject. Isn't it, Council? Validity is another subject. And the will is another one? Subject. So I'm comparing wills to Red Plus. We have heard that communities are keeping the forests. But we're asking ourselves, why are communities not implementing Red Plus policies? Remember, in the past workshop, we said there are 5 what? Components. Why are they waiting? Why are they waiting for the National Red Plus focal point to tell them, please? Is it because there is a misconception between what is the Red Plus and what are the interventions which qualify to be Red Plus? Or there is no money. There is no money to do what is required. So, as we open up, by show of hands, the floor is open for questions, comments, or both. But also, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to a working team. Please just know we won't have the tea break. It's already coming to 4. It is 3:47. And please, the questions should go to 2 ladies. We have the lady on your right, depending on how you are seated, and another lady on your left. So, Irene, to be specific, the question is going to Irene or to Adri. The floor is open. Prof, I should give you the offer first because you had something for Irene.
Yes, because this other one, I think it's almost myself. I just have a question for Irene.
My rapporteurs, you take note also.
How much you can do for those projects which you are taking? The agents responsible. I have interest in the one in oil, Seruka, because it has a natural forest. That landscape has a natural forest that is protected. Between PNFA, district local government, and it has been struggling with water, partly because that forest has to a great extent degraded. Then my other question is for this, I'm amazed you have over nearly 180. The TDM projects have 189. Most of them are outside forestry. Beyond the challenges of permanence, something that everybody faces. As a department, there's something that is being done to make forestry projects also attractive to the market. Now, that's, I think, Bob can also answer that one. Sister unit.
So you're asking both Irene and Bob.
If they are willing to share the answer. All the best for us. Useful to see, again, I'm biased. Interesting to see what the country is doing to make forestry projects attractive, especially on the issue of power. I written an article, so maybe it will come out, and that's one of the questions that the reviewer asked. What the permanence is forestry projects. You can't run away from it. One of the justifications we usually give, see some state will be harvested, trees will be harvested, but we shall ensure that the harvesting is sustainable. We can't be sure because there's no structural education. Or the wood will not be used to generate energy. Particularly, are going to make furniture. We're always looking for ways of demonstrating that wood will not end up. Interesting to see what and finally, the standards that you mentioned. In the regulations, we have not looked at the final draft, but we have an arrangement, quote unquote, clearly the different standards and someone wants to operate. Process. Look at all these standards in the whole their disability in Uganda. By Uganda being Uganda, the department together with the sister unit for distance.
Sister department.
Yeah, your sister department, that's what I said. Considering developing our own standards here. And that takes me to one of the questions I get. Are we moving towards setting up or coming up with policies that will incentivize private sector to start participating in these mechanisms? I'm already going there with government projects. We prefer the name in the act. Say that it might not be carbon taxes like other countries, but something that can help us start to grow the market locally. Because as you've seen in the admin submission, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the market. And those countries that we admire, look at Canada, look at US, look at they have developed, of course, they have developed their markets, their local markets. So there's something that we are doing. Relevant ministries to grow this market. There could be some point. For instance, I know of an organization. They're trying to work on the carbon footprint. Because what they do involves a very fly abroad. So they want to brand themselves as carbon neutral. When they look around, it's more law that requires them to abandon the NDC. And when they look at the NDC, they don't fall in any of those sectors that have been prioritized. So even when they invest carbon neutrality, there's nowhere they're going to go around showing off. Look, they are carbon neutral because the system does not incentivize those who have attempted. But also locally, we don't have the local or national standards, which are still used internationally. Those are my observations.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Second one. Yes, Irene, come on.
Can we address those questions first?
You raised three. You raised.
Yeah, detailed.
So I wanted to have a second chance. So let me give to council, then Zabia, and the first break. Break for questions, not for. So council.
Thank you. Mr. Mendy, little beats that you mentioned. I wanted. Very simple challenge. Was it only as different constraints or different? Or you have to expose it. That's what it is. And then one of the then I were able to establish, how are they being handled? With negative aspects of ADR, for instance, power imbalances, like during negotiations, the country it's airway. So how are they to handle that? What is their plan? Yeah, so
Thank you. Zabia.
Thank you, and through you, Pakistan. Actually, we have shared the presentations. I'm requesting you to share that presentation with us. It's very rich. So, Madam, we have two studies I wanted to share if they can make the additional input. One study was done for us when I was still in the middle class in the ministry by IUCN was an interpretation of the National Red Plus strategies, but how they can be applied at the district level. We learned on that program. It's either the website of the ministry or the gentleman behind the hotel or the old man here who dig through the old email to see if he has the one he shared. Then the other one was a study done on behalf of WWF or WCS by the team called Havila. We also did a study specific on the opportunities and challenges for undertaking the first carbon credits, including red brass in that landscape in particular. People learn both since this part of the literature. We pick a few points and maybe they help solve some of the points that were raised by the. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I want to first give the presenter. Irene, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, please you take the floor.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your three broad questions. I will try to attempt and address the ones that I have within my means. I think let me start with your first question, which you said, what are we doing to make sure that we support the two projects that were projected? We attempted already to write to the new FCC Secretariat, requesting them to reconsider the two projects. The roadmap, they said they have submitted that request to the supervisory body to do the reconsideration of the procedure. Because I think one of the requirement was that when you're making that request to the secretariat requesting for transition of your project, it should be, a contact person that was initially submitted. The project, the initial project that should be communicating, requesting for that transition. So there is a form that they told us they will send to these two projects for change of contact person on those projects or on those companies. So it's why I was saying that this supervisory body, guide the secretary that they get back to us, maybe in their next city, which I think should be before 4 or during, just prior to production. So we hope that we can get a positive feedback. But also it was a bit difficult for us to reach out to the project authorities because the contacts that we also have are no longer the current contacts. So we also found it a bit difficult to reach out to the project coordinators. But since you're part of them, somehow, just like the way the first communication went to the secretary, we also want to continue encouraging the project coordinators, especially those of the rejected projects, to write directly as well to the secretary, just in case they haven't moved that form or change of. Yeah. Let's see. The other question was regulations if they have standards for Uganda specifically, right? If we have a standard, like the Uganda standard, where?
Well, I meant where the regulation have guidance, standard accepted.
Yes.
Operational.
So in our regulations, it indicates that first it recognizes the existing standard. All those standards are the gold standard, and but also recognizes that I think the last bullet was that any other recognized standard, international standards. But it does not, we did not go into the details of if we want to come up with the standards, how, like to answer your question, we did not go into those details, but we hoping that if we want to come up with a standard, maybe eventually to be under organized standards, and then we can follow the procedure that is internationally out there on how to come up with standards. But we don't have those details in our regulations.
Chair, who is the chair?
I'm still right.
Just allow me to just have a follow-up to that. Why I raised, I think Robert, I didn't mention it, I was in some space where the responsible body was looking at that as an opportunity for his or her technical resources, his or her organization. As the claim was that if we don't have a standard here, people can use local. This is the one have credits. I don't need anything with existing international standards. It's an opportunity of creating local standard that is quote unquote government owned or state owned that we use. But also there was a possibility that government of Uganda can choose to have their own standards to compete with the other international standards. So that's why I was asking whether that's something that the party is thinking about, or is he not thinking about it?
So, Prof, if I may just answer that question actually. We have had, first of all, coming up with a carbon standards is not something that is very easy. It is something that is very comprehensive, expensive, costly, and technical inputs. But that is not the problem. The problem is, I shouldn't say it is a problem. The issue is that, first of all, we've got, by the way, different partners of expressing interests in government to help government come up with its own certification standards. But one thing is to come up with the standards, and the other thing is how many people will be using that standards. Because people are already into different standards that are existing. I happened to attend an African Union event with my colleague here. And one of the things that was also discussed was to do with coming up with the standards. And the discussion was, we do not need country-specific standards, but we need a regional certification standard. For example, African certification standard or something, but not specific to a country, but should be a regional standard, like the way we are Japanese accrediting mechanism, Islamic standard, Chinese, and so many others. Well, the discussion will be not need to have country-specific standard, but an African standard that can support the African facility. So coming up with a country-specific standard, we have got requests from different partners expressing the interest to partner with the government to come up with a standard. I think we feel our discussions going on, and we do not know whether we shall be able to come up with one soon. I can't promise that. But one thing that I wanted to speak to is to do with the issue you raised, which is very important, on the incentives, private sector, in terms of, for example, you raised those who are trying to be carbon neutral, and then they're looking out for some kind of incentives. And I thought this is also very important. With the Ministry of Finance, Robert, with the support of World Bank, technical support from World Bank, is trying to do a study on carbon pricing instruments that can work for environment. So we think that this is very important, because when you hear about the European Union carbon border adjustment mechanism, and also the other day I was reading about the UK one. So all those countries are coming up with those carbon border adjustments, and this will eventually affect the trade and all our goods that we wish to be exported to these other countries. Will probably be affected. And I think, for example, the one of Ukraine, their study was based on South Africa. In South Africa exports much of its products, for example, iron, steel, and something, to UK, and then it's going to be they are done successfully. And this will not stop like that. It will come to all. So it's important that we have a common pricing instrument, maybe purchasing mechanism specifically for Uganda, to also allow the private sector to ensure that they have their emissions reduced, so they can be in position to sell their products and avoid meeting all the taxes that they're going to be incurring those products. So this is something that we consider, and this is quite important. And then in terms of forestry, making it attractive, I'm leaving to my senior colleague to address that. But one thing that I wanted to say is that when we look at our NDC, for example, most of the measures that we pointed out, that is a conditional NDC aspect. The measures there are coming specifically from REDD+. The REDD+ measures, which we know that are the ones we just exported to Japanese. So we're trying to make sure that we attract a couple of investors to take interest in investing in a couple of projects in both specific measures. Other things?
Thank you for this. The topic, the conversation of governance is disturbed even the serious scholars because permanence itself is very difficult to deal with anyway. For especially nature-based solution, it is easy for the others, but nature-based solution is quite difficult because of governance issues, because of natural disasters and things like that. But in a real sense, in the ideal situation, actually, permanence for carbon will be for about 300 years. But the rules of the IPCC are such that 100 years could be the bare minimum for you to ensure of your carbon project having permanence. That is a rule, we don't know about it. But recently, we also have what called durability of carbon projects, which has brought in the issue of how to reduce reversals. Because you see, if you have reversals, then you don't have permanence. That is the issue. And so, humanly possible, it's possible for you to prevent change of land use somehow, if you have some good governance, change of land use from being a natural forest to sugar. You can. I mean, it is within your purpose as a government if you are able to. If your governance streams or structures are in the best shape. Because somebody will have you, we have lost Bugoma, there's a threat to Budongo, and worry about the threat and all that. But those are humanly possible. But if there is a climatic, a disaster, a hurricane, okay, a landslide, or a garbage slide. So I'm losing where my friend is now. If we have all those kind of things, then it's difficult for you to really certainly talk about permanence. So what is happening in the computations now? They're looking at the degree of permanence. What extent now? And that is what they deal with. If you're able to deal with it up to 25%, it's better. But it's very difficult for an enterprise solution to have 100% permanence. I want to be very sincere about that. Anybody who is telling me that it's possible, it must be telling me a lie. So the projects now, if you look at to what extent the degree of permanence, what extent can you reduce on the reversal? The greatest extent possible. That's what I can say. So in forest, of course, we have all those management protocols for sustainable forest management. If you deal with them in the right manner, then very likely you're dealing with a permanence situation, enhancing permanence of that estate if you're going to have it for carbon. We have had a problem both with the CDM projects, I think for information, because both of them we planted estates. Rojo, yeah, so anybody else would have really gotten worried about the issue of permanence, given the rotation period of these estates, and also the 100 years that we think is the best time. But scientists are also arguing that okay, normally for this plantation, you're going to replace. So there's going to be the fall and the rains, and so there are all these arguments. And technically, somebody can say, well, I'm sure I'm going to plant, so I'll have, and given the way I harvest, I'm structuring it in a manner that I'm not going to do a complete, cleaning of the estate and things like that. So in order for me to have a balance, a good balance. So this is, to me, it's the best I can say. At this point in time, but you see, with natural forests, of course, you may have some argument, but yes, to some degree, I'm able to keep its credits, keep some balance. I think that's all I can say.
Adrian?
For now. Thank you, Daphne, for that questions. As far as we law enforcement as an indicator of poor governance, the consultant, the stakeholders responded by saying that the laws are there, they are adequate, and some are being developed. It's the issue of ensuring that what the laws or the regulations or the guidelines are telling us to do, it's being done. Yeah, so there was a fear of, from experience, we've not done what the laws require us to do, not abiding. So if this is carried on, then it will affect the success of the enterprise. Then to do with equity, handling grievances, yes, we were looking at existing processes. They could be cultural, traditional processes, and we found that they are there. They have mechanisms of addressing grievances. Local council one, local council system, if it is to do with land, the Land Act really shows you how to do it. So there isn't an issue relating to that at least. But of course, there was concern on the alternative dispute resolution especially looking at how the judiciary has acted in other forest-related issues, which I already raised, the issue of Goma, which has not, it didn't cooperate or didn't give them the answer they expected it to give them. So that there's a fear of that. Then they're saying that some forests have had court injunctions for more than 10 years now. So yeah, there are those questions, of course, and fears that come with the practice on ground and what has been done so far. And that's why it is being raised as a potential issue that will affect the success of REDD+ if nothing is done. I want to thank you very much, Sylvia, for the additional
Literature.
I'll look out for this. I'll contact people in Anthony too.
One is behind you, the other is in front of
Yeah,
you. So it is easy.
Yeah.
I want to again continue the second round, still with my analogy of a wheel. Let's take a wheel as a REDD+ project now. What should be the ingredients of a good REDD+ project? Based from the issues we have seen and so forth and so on, noting that REDD+, we are talking about reducing deforestation, forest degradation, and the three, which you don't hear people talk about. I see, and I don't know why people don't talk about the three.
The requirements of the other three.
I don't know why people really keep quiet on the three. And Dr. Sepulveda, why do people skip the role of conservation as a forest biologist? Why don't we appreciate the role of conservation? Why do we only talk about using deforestation and we are measuring reduced forest loss? Degradation, yeah, we play around with statistics on restoration. But when it comes to the three, enhancement of carbon stock, we have some data on plantations, don't we? And that's what the ECR saying, that most of the CDM were actually reforestation projects. No, reforestation projects. We are reforestation projects, plantation. So maybe I start with you, Emma.
Yes, I think I will. Yes, before I actually promote that, I have to also
Please,
promote what have been presented. I wanted to know in terms of the collaboration between government and the grassroots structures. Do the respondents think this limits their capacity to participate in future REDD+ projects, or they think there are benefits associated, current benefits associated with those projects? Yes, Robert. Robert,
I'm here, behind you.
This chair. Before somebody comes in, you wanted to say something to conservation. But you know, we have just seen here that the political and the economic interests outcompete conservation, and you know, in a capitalistic.
A capitalistic economy.
Yes. Yeah. You find that people always concentrate on where they draw resources, and they try to leave the conservation question to another stakeholder. So it is going to be with us. You have had Bob was hinting on those issues of conversion of public forests, and where communities are worried if government is converting its forests, they are maybe going to come from the private ones. So you find that what we are dealing with, the political and economic interests actually outweigh the conservation interests.
So are you saying we don't mind about the role of conservation because we are in a capitalistic society?
So that's what I'm saying.
Who come for our land at any time they desire. Okay,
I will join that.
yes,
So I think what that's mentioned, I will come up with some comment, some direction. You see, what's happening now, the mechanisms that we conservationists, if I call ourselves so, are trying to take advantage to enhance our conservation efforts. And you might have heard of the requirements, the global requirements, under the global university requirement. Those as a tax, tax conservation effort. So and now we are trying to ensure some of your domesticate that global requirement, national biodiversity strategy and action plan. And so that is going to push governments by that conservation. Once we go to the tax that. I'm seeing currently the recent past the European Union as a regulation called the EU legislation, the commodity regulation, that you might have heard about, where some of the commodities like coffee, for example, it will be difficult for you to export coffee if it's evidence that the production of that coffee led to forestation or somewhere in the country based on some requirements. But so there are all these global efforts and we're not in isolation, we're not on an island. So somehow we are going to be affected by some of the things. So as government, we are looking at how can we be able to enhance our conservation efforts. We are party the IUCN red list requirements of conserving certain species and things like that. So it's just that we've been in a very difficult situation, and you're right when you talk about political, or maybe trying looking at this the outgoing, but government is bigger than the beginning. So that you might want to give examples of maybe not speed. So we believe that I think as government we have what it takes to enhance. And let me tell you something about carbon, which if you get interested as a government through carbon trade, I can assure you, you can even be blacklisted but you can't not be able to sell any carbon credit anywhere if you don't get into complying with some of the sectors. And all the other standards, whether they're outside the right, people and all the others, there are safeguard elements in those standards. And it will be difficult for you as a country to want to participate if there is a concern on how you comply with some of the sectors and the biodiversity and all these other things are part of the sectors. So I think for me, the opportunity is there. Which is there for us to be able to serve actually. Both questions that have to all of us, not to be taken for the right. The private sector is going to come. I mean, now wants to go into our public sector. It wants to use the idea that we don't, and maybe they've come, they come together, the national oil company. They have been invested in having you buy goods from the country. And so if we had started with the best thing, but unfortunately we don't. So because that's like my colleague I will mention. Something that's going to come out anywhere. Go to the parliament and so today I think the opportunity is there for conservation, especially in the space of carbon credits. We will be pushed to be able to do that. Of course, it may also come with other safeguard issues, consent issues. Because when you consult a lot, then you might have to trade off something. And one of those things will be community access to these estates and all these kind of things. So we have to, our eyes have to be open. How do you create a balance? Because if you don't, anything that goes at arms, then we could get into a collision course with the global community, because these markets are actually, I mean, the decisions are made, taken from somewhere else, including the price setting. There was some issue of setting the price, who sets the price anyway. We have capacity validation and verification and all this. I mean, we can talk about this until the cows come back home. So maybe for now, let me stop. But since I have the microphone, let me just talk about the study. First, I appreciate as the Red Plus Secretary with the findings of this study. I think it was the worst well study. Of course, I have the issue that you only deal with that landscape, because that's the best. It's a small landscape, and it has its uniqueness, you know. That's why some people do control. Because you do Karamoja, then you do the Albertine, then you can be able to make some recommendations that could be for. But I'm not saying that for your recommendations that I do, but I'm sure that we had an opportunity to do another study outside the Albertine. You know, the Albertine has its own issues. You know, everybody wants to run there, the number of projects, and then there is all this high potential for carbon sequestration and all these kind of things. So, but I want to say that your findings are correct based on what we have always been hearing. We had a recent African Forest Forum, UN Red Plus support for a consultant. The Marcel talked about the consultant. Called Goldwyn, communications expert, Forrester turned into a communications expert. I think you know, he was moving around the country to find out what's the perception of communities in places that are hard to reach in terms of internet and telephone communication on the Red Plus generally. So there's also that report which I'll share with you in addition to the other one, which they talked about. I think I have my archive. And so some of these aspects that you found out actually, we've been thinking that in the phase of demonstration investment with the Red Plus, our partners will be able to take some of this loan. You see, we prepare what we call participatory structures for it. That is simply a process. There were other partners that set at street of plans and WCS and environmental acts, something that led the process to develop participatory structures for Red Plus implementation in the country. And those structures are all over the country, they are available. It is an issue of implementation, utilizing them, reach out to the lowest communities, including indigenous people, if you want to pass on a message of Red Plus. So we've been thinking, okay, that during this demonstration phase, when these projects are now, you know, like the BF and all the other people, and the like, you know, should use these structures to try to talk about Red Plus, what it means, and what are the benefits, and all the information is available for that kind of conversation. But as another colleague was saying, maybe doesn't come that easy, and so the time they'll wait for the Red Plus secretary. We had an opportunity with the climate change department one time to move around the country on radio programs to talk about climate change, but also Red Plus, or across the country. To what extent can you reach out to all the people? These are all issues. But with the implementation of the Red Plus strategy and action plan, which we intend to do, and the project that we intend to have from the GCF, you may be aware that we have submitted. Uganda is one of the 4 countries that submitted concept notes to the GCF before the closure of the first phase of GCF Red Plus payments. And this morning, actually, they confirmed that decision by the board of GCF with the publication. What was the draft decision in July 15th? It's been confirmed this morning by the board as we speak now. But one of the things we want to do is implement the Red Plus strategy. And when you implement that strategy, there are those elements of reaching out to the local governments about this Red Plus. Doing a couple of things for them,
as you implemented that strategy, because we have an M&E plan for the strategy, we also want to implement.
So we are not the resources of financing we shall use is that one, because that one is our money, the Red Plus, and we can do anything that we wish to under what they call use of process arrangement, that plan people standard things planning process. So just to say that yes, government is not seated. We want to see that we reach out to everyone. It may be difficult, and we beg our partners who are here, whether it is the university, doing an outreach program, whether it is ECHO, with an opportunity like this, let's reach out to our community and talk about different methods for engaging climate finance. So I just wanted to make that clear. But there are other mechanisms other than opportunities. You raise an issue of lack of sufficient funding opportunities other than carbon, and there are many other things coming up by credits, for example. I know you was thinking on something like that, piloting, and many other mechanisms that can bring in finance to the communities, which other than rate are other than carbon project. But also carbon revenue from carbon should be seen as an addition to other streams. Yes, otherwise, if you take it as 100% source of revenue for you, and as an investment, you may have some challenges because our analysis shows that you may not deliver all the things that you get. Just an addition to what you've been doing for as long as you're doing in a manner which gives you an income, but also continues to keep the state available for those additional, for those opportunities by diversity and all this kind of thing. So carbon financing should be an additional stream into what you do, other than looking at it as 100%. When those guys are waiting for keeping their forest intact and having high expectations, I hope they are not just sitting, they're not be picking herbs from this forest because they think that if we return them from picking herbs, they wait for auction trade and carbon. Maybe I hope not. So I think it's just a message that needs to be clear to our natural forest owners, the Kane, for example, and others. I know Kane gets a lot of things from his forest. In a scene, the longer area. Those who don't know, we have a private natural forest owner of about 84 hectares. I hope it has 84 hectares. And there's a lot of benefits from that forest. Microclimate, been with farms brought by one of the people blessed with some good harvest of maize and the like. Because there's a microclimate just around. So there's other opportunity benefits from this forest other than the carbon that you like say you wait for. So we are giving carbon revenue other than you can come there. You know, probably can think about this.
I know that is your grade and plan.
So that it's not here.
But if we are doing justice, I want to give you and there. Let me see that you see in country children and you have their comment. If I get to the problem. So we'll go around, then I will also now present my country.
We have a representative. Let's have a first one. Other countries, that's local community that the declaration that these issues will contextualize the social policy in this area. So I think this is talking about. Then also in the history, we mentioned that one of the issues are human well-made. Yeah, but then the recommendation is, whereas you talk about the conversation, now let's point points like it is
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes, thanks everyone, and thanks for the presenters. I think this has been a very interesting breakdown of some of these issues for us to be able to appreciate better. But I'll start maybe from the conservation perspective. I think, yes, like Bob has mentioned, the opportunities are there. But I think we also probably need to, as a country, and maybe as a sub-region, broader sense. Begin to want to understand what they mean by multiple interests. The economic understanding is really that's in the capitalist economy. But the issue of political interest, I think, become outdated when we look at it from the perspective. Because how come that in other areas, regions, the political interest never takes us? But when it comes to our region specifically, then it becomes an issue. So I think it's something for us to reflect. But I think for conservation, I think the other thing also is how can we have an integrated manner of packaging the additional benefits. I mean, that Bob mentioned some of them here. For example, there is a tendency for the communities to look at carbon credits as an end in itself. Yeah. But when you look at conservation of a landscape in a broader sense, there are those additional benefits. They could be aesthetic, they could be they could have impact on even productivity or the general well-being of the landscape. So how do we package these additional benefits? So that then when we're discussing conservation, someone is not just running quickly at saying, but what is the economy of that conservation? But they are looking at the broader benefits. So it will also be something for us to focus on and be able to do. And then also maybe for the Adrian, your presentation, I think the opportunity cost is also something for us to be very clear. Because like we are saying, eucalyptus for pine and all these other exotics, but also these other land use changes. These other land uses seem to have a more attractive outlook when you versus what we are trying to promote. So, but for me, again, I think there's also an opportunity there. And I think it can be demonstrated that beyond just looking at the short-term benefits, because most of these are short-term. But ultimately, when you begin to look at, for example, nature-based solutions as an ultimate, as a long-term solution to some of the climate change issues, floods, drought, destruction of the infrastructure that's happening there. When you look at some of the trends. So how can we then begin to have this broader discussion so that people are not just focused on, I have I just want to sell my plantation and get the revenue out of it, but look at the broader sense. So I think the landscape approach also comes in here. But again, still the issues of tenure, of ownership, still linger in the background, which I think our colleagues who are in rights, equity, and those kinds of things should also help us. But perhaps I think government is also, I see a move now towards, even for the land tenure system. I think there's an interest now to actually begin to look at them differently. For example, in northern Eastern Uganda, where we have the custom, I think people are beginning to realize that the old way of customary land tenure is no longer going to be sustainable. Because in a way, the ownership is very questionable. It's by word of mouth, it is by trust. Some of those things, the very first century now, longer hold that much. So those could be also other things we look at as a way of securing the rights, the equity issues, and the confidence of communities to be able to participate in this.
Thank you very much, Moses. Don't worry when you see me doing the multitasking. I'm coordinating. In Uganda, if you delegate, they take it. You ask me nice, I will tell you, you had it passed down. Bro.
They're going to bring you back to the course of human society. Edwin, thank you. I have a few comments or observations. One I will speak as possible. There's certain things I missed seeing on other issues which I think we can't afford to forget. And that's the oil and gas activities. They may not have mentioned them probably because we assume that they are obvious. You look at the images, several images. In a lot of land is not covered areas where we have active oil and gas. All construction, all these important infrastructure sustain. Another important fact, probably, yes, no, the influence of refugees. That refugees have been very cautious here, but we also have what we call e-migrants, even not tired from other parts of the country. People have become that landscape, you can go. Many people, anticipation that we will come with our class and many other. So, and that's also connected to the population rise. And that landscape has a higher population growth compared to the rest of Uganda. Well, at the rest of Uganda, the other census actually expected now around population growth. Now that you said about and not that they are giving birth to it, but mainly because of what you have. So the population is issue. Because there's implications. Then it would be useful for your readers to determine of the 5 net plus activities, which one people feel very positive. I know in some of the work we did some years ago, we identified 2 reducing emissions from deforestation and a bit of SMF, sustainable management of forest. But that was based on the policy review that policy review. Interesting to see what the people in the landscape see as the most promising red plus activity. Because of that, interesting also to know of these red plus activities that I think is the future. What could be the challenge? We have so far seen and present that takes me to, I think it was Robert who was raising that question on why conservation of carbon stores and enhancement of carbon stores is not popular. People don't talk about it. I thought, Commissioner Book has given you answer it because it falls within the mandate. From where I see that, I say, part of the reason is the requirements for each of the needs, whether it's SMF, we don't have. If you are going to send your initial production based on these other 3, there are certain requirements. You can sell them under the class. Many of them we don't have the reference level based Maybe together with the partners, they are making some progress. But our argument is, let's have a big shopping list. It's always good to have a big shopping list for those who are married to implement. Have a bigger shopping list than having a very small sample where you select. And then lastly, just to build on what Moses was raising, before I get there, you mentioned permanence. I thought it would be nice to see state the other red plus requirements. People that are beyond permanence, but permanence might be something elsewhere. But is there a unique red plus requirement beyond permanence? Work on, be aware of. And finally, I can give my opinion on these two issues that Moses raised. The issue of Pentecost is going to continue being within our space. And part of the reason why the question, interested is that we are committed to land. We're telling people it's money with this land. So they are right to say, look at the opportunity. We can't hide under that. See, it's just an incentive. That you mentioned is a question that's supposed to benefit me at the line. So I think the problem is the way we design these projects. The people who design them should be sure that the returns actually, when we compare with the opportunity costs, they are competitive. As long as we don't put it in consideration, the way we kind of one way through saying have a combination of estimates beyond just a couple. That is embedded within the design. And then we compare to we need some studies there where we can see a combination of different options that will make a red plus as long as we are. And I thought that is a question that should address the issue of similarly, reflect on all those recommendations to see how we can address some of the challenges. Right. We shouldn't just out there to report the challenges. Part of the reason why only a consultant that will help us. You think for us, so you have to see these challenges. What can be done to address these challenges? Okay, so try to look at both the challenges and the solutions. Because you make some suggestions of what you only similar on political economy is similar to Pentecost. So the question of political economy will be there. As long as those involved, any initiative might not even be the road, even if it is an airport. I like to give the example of they are going to construct a study going in the letters are not happening. They have I bias. So as an airport, as an oil refinery, as a big industrial park, has all the big forests that Uganda is proud of, part of the national park is there, and now they're also going to have of course, that's again, they're not going to have a soccer study, a football study. Now, the question is, if we had followed the normal process of government projects, would that project, the soccer study pass? Those who work with government know that projects are evaluated following basic economic spheres. So probably that's a political project. And the government is okay to have. That's what they're going to have another important infrastructure project, another political project. So the question is, how do we promote, how do you get a project to be politically attractive? Okay. I don't want the government so much, especially they're able to tell us. So my view is when a project is benefiting large politicians should look at numbers, kind of capital gains from it. They will ask how many people are benefiting. In real terms, at household level, like in Uganda, it's at household level. How many people benefit directly from this project? So that should be intentional. If the sugarcane guy is saying it's going to get this number of jobs, well, for you, you are just saying butterflies. My colleague, you're not going to say small mammals, rats, in other words, are going to increase in number if we restore this area. The question will be, is the Musu edible? How many people are going to benefit? Okay, so that's the one we are competing. Can't run out.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for this excellent. I want to wind up. It's already 4:30. Xavier, then I will now ask colleagues that as we wind up, let's coin those key parameters should be able to point out for a good REDD+ project as we wind up. So, Xavier, and Philip, I hope you are hearing.
Thank you, Chair, and the members. So I will be direct that in the negotiations for REDD+, we listed the 5 activities which members have mentioned. 2 are prominent because they reduce or avoid emissions. 3 do so, but in an indirect way, and especially conservation. So countries have agreed, and the pioneering of this activity now is with the World Bank Forest Carbon Partnership, the section of the Carbon Fund. It has agreed to convert the non-carbon benefits, which are in the decision on REDD, into quantifiable assets that will be added on the payments for the emission. So that they can start being monitored. He attended the last board meeting with the Forest Carbon Partnership meeting in Oslo, and it was part of the resolutions. So they already have prepared the paper and have drafts on how they can do so. The second method, which you are already team leader, is the biological diversity credits. They already have a standard, and that standard now measures the components of conservation, especially those future points, Professor, you were mentioning, that are invisible. Those rats, those earthworms, those crickets, and that air which is not carbon dioxide. So they will now be included in the standard for biological diversity. What we need from you, Secretary for REDD, is that we enter them into activities we will spend our money on when we receive the results-based payments, so that we prepare the baselines for them. Because the methodologies are now being prepared at the other level, all we need now is to say, this is where we stand with respect to these numbers. And then with respect to enhancement, I am glad even Vera now has adjusted the methodology for REDD, which now includes enhancements. They have put some conditions on afforestation, reforestation type of enhancements, and they have a caveat on natural flashes, which is still a limitation. But I am requesting that we find a way, the Secretariat, of spending our money on removing the caveats where the largest market is located. The standard for art trees, which you mentioned in the architecture for REDD, already has a primer on how to quantify those other 3, which are invisible from Vera. So if we support him, then we will prepare baseline. Then we will share that baseline with those 3 districts
if we are calling the land small land scale. He's also preparing on putting projects which are smaller than the sub-land scale, which RED was supposed to be implemented on. We are supposed to implement RED the national level. Let us not miss that. And that is what solves the permanence issue. Countries agreed that RED be owned by governments, not businessmen and politics. That way the commitment, governments are not going anywhere. From the period before Jesus, the period after Jesus, governments exist. And that is the permanence number one. Those governments exist with the politicians. We will live with them. We are now working on making politicians the champions of them. So I wanted that one to be accepted, absorbed, and if possible, smuggled into the recommendations, but I don't have any influence on that. So the three documents I have prepared, if the meeting gives me permission, I will give them to you. Otherwise, I will give you the titles and be asking you for them. They are public documents. You will ask the
You are protected from fraud.
But we have to clear this. If we ask the commissioner will ask yes. So we shall take long. We are here to solve this.
I've allowed you, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have exhausted quite enough for what we expected from this meeting. And I hope, Adrian, you seem to have got the inputs that we sought. However, now as the chair, I also have my comments before I go into the closing. We were looking at potential governance feature of RED+. You have generalized these governance features. I know you are looking at quite robust feature, but we wanted to see the peculiar features within the landscape. Then from those peculiar features, which now you seem to have summarized as we are moving, one of it, and I don't know why my commissioner has not responded. Ownership of trees, and ownership of land. On trees you can stop, but on land. You talked about the issue of participation. Now, you see, the way you were presenting them is different from how it is in the write-up. I don't know if that is the habit of Ugandans. If you are looking at a report and the presentation, sometimes there is a big difference. Someone is presenting very good things, but when you go to check in the report, then you find a mismatch. So for me, I have identified some of those. You talked about transparency, accountability. Now, that was generally, when you are talking here, you contextualize them. And for me now, I thought from there, that's how we went to probe, see what the communities are looking. Communities told you their frustrations. We have heard about communities not seeing RED meet what they envisaged. And also you have said that communities seem also to identify co-benefits other than emission reduction. I don't want the word carbon. It stabs me so much. So for me, these things you have presented here summarize this, but when you look in the draft you share, maybe they were hidden by you, don't know. But how do we bring them up the way you have had the sentiments? Yeah, especially, we all know, we don't plant trees in the air. If there are those issues, what should we do? And now those would be the potential future for any, because if you are doing a REDD+ project where land is contested, my council asked a good question. He asked about what it's called dispute resolution. Now we take this thing lightly. I don't know. I don't know why dispute resolution in this country is taken as a joke. And the way Adwin is saying, oh, we have the LC system. Recently, one LC in a village around was caught with someone's husband. Hey, you know the punishment? The thing was almost removed. And these are realities. You have seen how women you have become hungry with chopping off men's reproductive organs. But you know, we don't have any legality about how you stop someone. The dispute resolution, and like she said, the power imbalances. Adwin is educated. She's the one who has the bungalow in the village. You know, you don't have anything to say to her, even if they call her in an LC meeting, she summons the chairman to her home. For me, I think past failures of emission reduction projects have been due to weak dispute resolution mechanism. ROHO wouldn't have collapsed if there was a fair hearing, people's concerns were listened to and addressed. You see, we are dealing with a fragile state now. People are so much hungry. You have seen when the first lady just told the parents, pack eggs and what?
And milk.
And the milk. Social media is up in arms. Huh? Just telling the people, pack eggs and what? That shows you the anger. You say.
You are now like that.
No, for me, I encourage you. I encourage you with proteins for me. But it depends the proteins you give your kid. But I'm trying to construct the views we have gotten here. When I put this into still the judiciary has one of a clear dispute resolution mechanism in hierarchy that you prepare from registrar, then you go to another one. I think it goes up to the Chief Justice. But now, when the ROHO had challenges, the project manager could not. When it came to ministry, it couldn't be solved. What happened? People had to seek for alternatives. And the media is once, things that are spoiled. Maybe that builds on the negative publicity on the REDD+. If someone is committing a community into a 30-year agreement on land which was for food production, these people have told you, we signed an agreement in English. You were in Kangombe landscape, deep down in one of those communities. And a program, which I don't want to mention, came with an agreement, which is in English. I told them, you sign, you're going to start paying you $. When this old man, woman who was maybe 30 hectares runs to his kid, the kid like, Mom, this agreement says you can't access that land. Man is desperate. The next thing would be, why don't I chop these trees? Because we all know our LOCs, even in office, by extension. That it comes, zero C's. They're in office by extension. And all of you here, few trust zeros. That's it, they are biased. Country like, region like that one, which is now having matters of oil and like Robert said, the new immigrants who have settled in that region are powerful than the inhabitants. And they would have power imbalance anywhere they go against it. So how do we strengthen that dispute whereby if this community raises an issue, there would be fairness, charity, and so forth and so on. So for me, these are the things which I'm trying to construct around Red Plus. And lastly, funding. I haven't heard you talk about money. I don't know whether that was a counterfactual that we assume.
It's one of the other issues. I think there you are multitasking.
But for me, I didn't hear about the money. But I did hear as the chair. But nonetheless, if you say this, that is good. But I would still encourage contextualize the issues based with that port landscape, because we know it. Let's not generalize. Otherwise, someone will land on this report and says, oh, okay, things can be normal. And then from those, I would encourage that identify maybe 4 to 3 pointers. 3 pointers that if these 3 are well incorporated in the design of a Red Plus project, that project, we are rest assured of it being successful. For me, there we would have done service to the Red Plus focal point. That when he's going to those communities that are waiting to hear him, that so when can we start Red Plus? Then they okay, whatever you do, make sure this is a tick, this is a tick, and this is a tick. If you haven't incorporated that, first work towards that and ensure that it is well incorporated in your design. For me, I think they would have done a service to the Forest Sector Department and the Climate Change Department. Because also the department in the regulations, they have parameters of what a carbon project should be. Okay? So with that, I don't know whether Madam Consultant, you still want the floor, or those are take homes. I see through.
I just wanted to offer guidance. That's a very good observation. Providing local context, providing vertical originality in the work. If you look at your quotes, it has quotes. I think that's where the originality is. You can just reflect on what you had for the different principles, especially. Those should guide us what the real issues are. Then you should be able to emphasize them. So when someone is talking about transparency, for instance, what does it really mean in that landscape, transparency? When they talk of equity, an example that Robert is just given of what we call the new Banyogo versus historical Banyogo.
The historical.
Yeah. People feel that most of the opportunities are going to be Banyogo. Like if you look at the resettlement packages that the Ministry of Energy provided for the oil in the reflecting on whether the packages had an impact on our people. And I'm speaking like the person who works for not region who works for we have observed that when you look around, you don't see any impact on the ground. Yet the money was a lot. And part of the reason is that the compensation was mainly for the new Banyoro. When they got the money, they all lost the DRC. Because most of them were Banyoro of DRC so if you go to Hoima and you say, this was a huge bonanza for government, and there's a way I see it. All the people who got it, they are not natives. So those are some of the things you want to do, so that people are aware as you enter that one.
So over to you, Adrian, before we go into closing.
Thank you very much, Robert, and colleagues for the inputs. I think most have been really issues that I need to follow up with, for example, from Zambia, but also input into improving the report, which I don't have to respond to, except from Prof, which was talking about communication issues that I'm glad the Assistant Commissioner responded to, so I'll not have to repeat that. So thank you very much for this input, and I'm glad that it's going to improve the report further.
Can we join in thanking our consultants? So thank you so much, our consultant, first for doing the wonderful job, because you have had no one is saying, no, that is insufficient. There you have lied. So that means that you really met our expectations. And let's look at the revised report, which would be accompanied with a briefing note. And see how we can continue this discussion. Like Irene said, many people don't know that the mitigation component of Uganda's NDC is the REDD+ strategy. So that was something which was kept silent, but today she has given you a tincture around it. It is already past our planned time to depart this place. It's already 5. We are trying to leave 4:30. Again, we thank you for your endurance in remaining with us up to this end. And as we go into the closing, that last agenda item on way forward, we are going to leave it with the SC from the Forest Sector Support Department. But before we invite him, I want to invite our colleague and the partner representing WWF, and that is none other than Mr. Philip Kumbro. Philip, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, so Philip, over to you as we close this review meeting.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope I'm not the one closing, but just to give a round of comments maybe, and to applaud, first of all, Emily, thank you so much for taking the lead on this task or this assignment, but also specifically to thank Adrian and the group of consultants for the great work on the potential governance features that are relevant for the success of their projects. I want to applaud the comments that have come through, and I believe that they will be able to make this work a little bit better, to improve it and make it usable for the different stakeholders. I take note of what Commissioner Bob mentioned, that most of the efforts seem to have been in the Albertine Rift. Potentially, maybe we would want to have a different control area, which is very, very important to kind of, understand the challenges and maybe the variations on other landscapes. But also want to appreciate the various comments that have come through, especially on how best we can improve tenure and ensure that, we don't look at carbon as the ultimate product or service that accrues to the farmer, but it's just as an add-on. And I think that we should be able to enhance and ensure, the aspects of permanence if you're able to benefit. I'll finalize with a small story in Monteme around 2010, when we were developing the first experimental payment for ecosystem services project, where we visited a farmer who had 36 hectares of intact forest. And when we presented him the proposal of giving him an incentive of 70,000 per hectare per year to maintain his forest, he listened very carefully, and at the end of it all asked me, "Young man, you think I've kept this forest of 36 hectares because of the 70,000 that I expected? There are other benefits that I, of course, obtained from the forest." At the end of it all, we realized that, he was a medicine man, a herbalist who was getting a lot of herbs from the particular forest. So these were direct benefits to him, and he was not looking at carbon or anything, a payment for ecosystem services, as something that should be able to motivate him. So ultimately, we need to find things or tenets that will be able to motivate farmers, keep the forests as they are, but not looking at carbon as the end result. So I want to thank you, and I look forward to an improved version of the report, which we could be able to put to use. And I want to take this opportunity to invite the Commissioner for Forestry, Mr. Bob Kazungu, to step forward and close this engagement. Thank you very much.
Philip, thank you very much, moderator. I think to us at the Secretariat, we can't thank you more, because what you are, sharing with us here is important for the improvement of the way we do things at the Red Plus Secretariat, but also as we get to this very interesting phase, you see a lot of growing interest from everybody about emission reductions. You said we would avoid using There's a lot of growing interest, and as we head towards 2030, you know that there were those commitments in Glasgow at the COP26, where both private sector and governments, the whole world, have some targets to meet in terms of net zero and the others that they pledged by that COP26 in Glasgow. So as we go towards 2030, you'll see a little bit more pressure coming into tropical countries, including Uganda. And so learning what works at this point in time through a study like this one and many other reports is something that we take very seriously at the Red Plus Secretariat. And we look forward to the briefing note, which we hope to make use of in the way we govern ourselves at the Red Plus Secretariat, including how we utilize the existing structures, and to share more with the communities, and try to entice people and make them understand more of what it means to engage in Red Plus. You are aware that the climate change mechanism regulations are almost completed, as our colleague from the Climate Change Department just mentioned. At the Red Plus Secretariat, we can't wait to see them get completed, because we work under the same framework if we are to engage in climate change mechanisms through Red Plus and other related initiatives. So we are looking forward, and we hope to participate and support and work with the Climate Change Department on the dissemination of those regulations and the guidelines that will come alongside that. I also would like to inform you that the Red Plus Secretariat currently is benefiting from the UN RED program support. Mainly, we are trying to improve on our also elements, aligning them with the ACTRIS standard. But that piece of work goes beyond just the ACTRIS standard, because whatever we do can actually be utilized for beyond just the standard. So we utilize the activity data that is being improved by FAO technical support for our global reporting, whether it is ACTRIS or not, but even for the national reporting. If you want to do LULAC maps, want to estimate very quickly our land cover and our trends in forestry cover, utilizing all the capacity that we are receiving with this support to do that. But we also have dialogues that we are going to be engaged in with UNDP support under that UN RED program. And so when I heard about these two dialogues, we have to find a way of trying to amplify, work together to make sure that we have some useful dialogues in the country, talking about this conversation of mission reductions. What happens? Are we ready as a country? All this kind of thing. So we're going to engage the private sector, engage with non-state actors and the other ministries and departments in some interesting dialogues in the coming weeks. And then, of course, the safeguards conversation is being led by the UNEP. UNEP is the UN Environment Program, and we've been working with them for some time since last year. And Emily has actually led supporting administratively the work of United Nations Environment Program within the UN RED program support. So we hope to continue these activities until 2025 December with Emily, but then also we continue with a new strategy and action plan that we are developing with the UN program for 2026 to 2030. So, you know, the countries still has some support, largely technical capacity building, but it's good for us moving forward. And for that reason, we have a mission, a UN RED program mission, but it's actually a joint mission also with the FAO from Rome that is coming to FAO specifically will be looking at some bit of consultation, some initial consultations for the GCF RED Plus results-based payments proposal that I just talked about when I was speaking here. And so we hope that all of you here actually, we shall make sure. But for your information, normally when we want to speak to people in this space, we just ask Emily for, can you give us partners, we see all these guys in this meetings. Just get up all those guys, you know, and then we consult the same people because you are the people who are in this space, plus other partners probably who have not engaged with you. So during that time of the mission, which is between 14th and 17th of October, we hope to engage with you again. It will be a one-day meeting, I guess, so 1 or 2 days. We shall agree. We are yet to conclude the agenda with the UN RED program, but also with the FAO team that is coming as a joint mission with these people. And of course, for the UN RED program support during the mission, they would want us to continue discussing on how we are implementing our UN RED program, but also prepare the strategy for 2026 to 2030, which the country will be participating in. And that strategy is going to be discussed further in early October in the executive board meeting of the UN RED program, where Uganda was recently selected to be a board member. And so, for the grace of God, I'm the board member of the UN RED program, representing the Africa constituency. But so meaning that we have an opportunity to negotiate a little bit better. Yeah, of course, we negotiate on behalf of other countries in Africa, but when you are seated there, then you can never forget your country anyway, unless there is a problem with you. I also wanted to inform you that the preparations for the COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan are on, and my sister here from Climate Change Department will tell you that the roadmap is available. If you want to find out much, you speak the Climate Change Department. But if you're interested in traveling, there is an accreditation. If you have financing, you get accredited in time, and the process is still going on until what's the end of October. Better do now because we don't want last minute accreditation. But if you find that the space is all covered, you remember government is trying to do this on how many people go for this. You know, you saw social media how it was complaining all over the place. To have so many delegates and all this kind of thing. Yeah, so I think to me, it's something that you need to be very, if you're interested in traveling and you want to travel, do the accreditation now. And we also call upon our partners. My sister Irene will tell you that we are trying to mobilize additional resources to make sure we have us set as a country in Baku, Azerbaijan. So ECHO, for example, I don't know, Mackay University, But it's not you can do that. You can get done. ICN actually, yes, how can I forget ICN? Even if it throws some $15,000 or $20,000, $100,000, shall be more than happy to receive it and prepare the space for you to talk about your things while you are in Baku, Azerbaijan. But also as a citizen of this country, you feel proud to be, to be part of this delegation, but part of the people who are going to speak and utilize the space. And WWF actually, Philip, for your information, we are pushing for you to get us some for $50,000, if possible, that we can add on our, financing that we're trying to mobilize. That we can discuss later after this meeting, Philip. But I just wanted not to forget to thank WWF quite indeed. This project, Africa, that they've been implementing and other projects within those landscapes, we've used them as learning launch pads or learning centers for us to implement REDD+ as we go into the results-based payments phase of REDD+. So we really want to thank our partner, WWF, and the others that are participating in those landscapes, because whatever you do helps us to learn as we move forward. It wasn't by mistake that REDD+ was phased into 3. The readiness phase, where we are preparing all these readiness documentation, there were also elements and other frameworks, benefit sharing arrangements, grievance redress mechanisms. There was something here, discussion on conflicts. We will have something you can start with to deal with your conflicts if they arise during REDD+ implementation. The feedback grievance redress mechanism is also available. Actually, please take advantage of that. And I'm sure that our partners have taken advantage and utilized those documents. And you see the next phase, which was the investment phase or the demo phase, it wasn't by mistake that was there, because we knew that REDD+ is going to be implemented at national level. Reported largely at national level. But we also knew that there could be project level REDD+ projects within the landscapes because of the nature of the way things happen across the globe. So anything that we have in the landscape can be utilized to learn as a demo. And that's why we're talking about nesting. There is a mechanism to make sure that we know what's happening within the landscapes, and then we can maybe allocate what those pilot projects are doing within those lands. I mean, what they should be taking home in terms of credits within those landscapes. So all this is possible within the space of REDD+. And then, of course, the results-based payments phase, where now we're saying, okay, here we are, we have everything that it takes. Now let's get paid for our efforts, and it's performance-based for your own information. So to me, there was no mistake for the global community to talk about the 3 phases of REDD+. And we've learned quite a lot from what our partners like the WWF have done within the landscape. And thanks for the capacity building efforts that have happened all through. And for that matter, therefore, I'd like to bring this meeting to a close by way of adjourning it. And may God bless you and journey masses.
Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful closing remarks. As you see, my book's already in my hands, meaning that indeed this meeting has been adjourned. Administrative announcements. As you know, Emily has transitioned to a paperless modality, and also to a cashless, to a cashless modality of payment. I remember those days, Prof, when people used to hand us sacks of money, actually bundles of money after a workshop. So your facilitation will be sent to your mobile money a few minutes from now. And we will be engaging you as we complete this study. It might not be physical, we might do it virtually, because you know you are very busy people. But we really want to complete what we have started. We are greatly indebted to your input to this report. And actually, this is a sign of ownership of what will come out from this report. Just know many of you will be acknowledged as respondents. And once the consultants try to reach out to you for additional information, please be flexible and respond. As I conclude my approach about the will, I have money. Whoever will answer this question as we are going on, because